WADR. Promoting dialogue.
It's 6 p.m. in Dakar, 7 o'clock in Praia. Good evening and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa, Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and worldwide on wadr.org. Welcome to Newslink. Here are the top stories. The opposition in Benin denounces the conviction of Olivier Boko and OSIWA.
This is one of the rare times we have witnessed such a trial. I think that we should be able to draw the legal consequences to still try and appeal to show that people were not able to benefit from the services of a lawyer's office. Their right to a fair trial is violently violated.
Niger to launch national and regional airlines on the AES initiative. Reaction trails the rise in public debt level of Togo.
In the last 2 years, we have had a drastic decline in the density of our economy, in the volume of our economy, which means that there is still low production that does not allow us to raise the level of our fiscal and non-fiscal resources to the level of the country's needs.
And in Senegal, police announces the arrest of nearly 366 individuals in connection to several offenses. Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is Augustine Coley with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast and welcome to our listeners within and beyond the sub-region. This edition of Newslink begins in Benin, where the political class is reacting to the recent conviction of Olivier Boko and OSIWA by the Court for the Repression of Economic Offenses and Terrorism, CREAT. Both close associates of President Patrice Talon were sentenced to 20 years in prison and fined 1.5 billion CFA francs each. They were found guilty of conspiracy against state security and corruption of a public official. Abdullahi Hassan reports.
The opposition party, the Democrats, was one of the first political organizations to comment on the convictions of Olivier Boko and Oswald Homeki. In a press release, the party, aligned with former President Boniai, acknowledged the CREAT verdict but criticized the justice system for operating under the influence of the executive branch. In contrast, the ruling party, the Republican bloc, praised the CREAT's decision, asserting that it reflects an impartial justice system.
This is one of the rare times we have witnessed such a trial. I think that we should be able to draw the legal consequences to still try and appeal to show that people were not able to benefit from the services of a lawyer's office. Their right to a fair trial is violently violated. We are in the presence of summary justice.
According to President Patrice Talon's party, the verdict demonstrates the seriousness of the foiled plot. However, Angelo Adelaku, a lawyer and expert in human rights and democracy, pointed out that while CREAT is making progress, there are still important reservations to consider. Regarding the legal consequences of this trial, Adelaku noted that the court imposed the most severe sanction given the circumstances, but criticized the rapid pace at which CREAT processed the case.
Where the court preferred to opt for the most severe sanction in the matter, that is to say the extreme, that's a choice. The judge has the elements, or even it gives the condition to decide. After that, we have to say there were still facts. It is the disestablishment of the lawyers, and so the trial continued. Afterwards, we saw the whole scenario with the president of the bar who was not able to provide common lawyers ex officio, even though people had the financial means.
Meanwhile, according to the law, the convicted individuals have 15 days after the verdict is announced to file an appeal.
WADR's Cotonou correspondent Aziz Adam Sulet's report voiced by Abdullahi Hassan. Still in Benin, the former president of the National Assembly and a member of the ruling presidential movement, Adrien Hungbeji, is calling for the release of political prisoners and the return of political figures in exile. He has also expressed a desire to meet with activists from the PRD party and representatives of all political affiliations. Hongbeji emphasizes the importance of the political parties remaining united in order to work together for the nation's development. Christopher Aticho reports.
Adran Hogbeji emphasizes that the spirit of renunciation and collaboration is critical for the successful organization of the National Conference of the Vital Forces of the nation. During a recent event where he presented his wishes alongside PRD party activists, Hogbeji urged political parties to come together to discuss their conflicts and seek solutions that will enable all the citizens of Benin to unite and work towards building the nation. Regarding the attempted coup d'etat that resulted in the imprisonment of Olivier Boko and Oswald Homeke, he analyzed that these events stem from a sense of exclusion. The former president of the National Assembly pointed out that the approach of each government influences the nature of the position it encounters. He cited the example of General Mateo Kiraku, who became a true Democrat after the National Conference in order to maintain peace in the country. From his position within the region, Hogbeji calls for the release of political prisoners and encourages the return of political exiles. However, despite his appeals, United Nations experts have repeatedly expressed concerns about the Beninese government's rigid response and its lack of action on the many requests for the release of political prisoners.
Christopher, teacher, with that report. We move now into the Sahel region, where Niger's Minister of Transport, Colonel Major Salisu Mahaman Salisu, has announced plans to establish both a national airline and an airline for the AES member states. To facilitate this, the National Civil Aviation Agency has eased legal provisions and streamlined the process for obtaining flight authorizations. A committee has been formed to expedite the necessary documentation, aligning with a broader strategy to enhance regional connectivity and domestic transport. Salisu emphasized that launching the AES airline is a top priority, with progress advancing rapidly to link member states' capitals and beyond.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Still in the Sahel, on issues related to collaboration, a major step towards regional integration is taking shape as Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger work to introduce a unified visa for the Alliance of Sahel States. This initiative was a key focus of discussion over the weekend in Bamako, where experts from the three countries gathered to lay the groundwork. Once implemented, foreign nationals seeking to travel within the AES region will be required to obtain this visa. Here is Malian Minister of Security, Major General Daoud Ali Mamadine, speaking about the matter.
This meeting comes 4 months after the one held in Bamako on November 2 to 3, 2024 on harmonizing travel and identity documents. It follows up on key recommendations from the IES Security Ministers meeting in November 2024, particularly the introduction of AES community visas. The AES community visas is a vital step towards strengthening regional cooperation, enhancing security and facilitating mobility. It will allow non-citizens to enter and move freely across the three member countries of the Confederation.
Malian Minister of Security, Major General Daoud Ali Mahamadine. Ghana's Minister Designate for Foreign Affairs, Samuel Ablekwa, has defended President Mahamad's diplomatic stance regarding the Sahel crisis. Appearing before Parliament's Appointment Committee, Mr. Ablekwa asserted that the administration's approach is deeply rooted in Ghana's strategic national interests and its enduring commitment to regional integration. He explained that despite the recent move by Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger to withdraw from ECOWAS, a decision that became effective last week, Ghana is determined to keep open channels of dialogue with its neighbors. WADR's Nadedetete reports.
President Mahama recently named Flight Lieutenant Colonel Bevlulati, a former national security chief, as his envoy to the newly formed Alliance for Sahelian States (AES) of Niger, Mali and Burkina Faso to address shared security concerns, promote economic development and foster greater cooperation among member states. Answering questions before Parliament's Appointment Committee during his vetting, the Minister-designate for Foreign Affairs Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa affirmed Ghana's commitment to dialogue and regional stability. He further stressed Ghana's deep historical and economic ties with these three nations and warned that instability in the Sahel could harm Ghana's trade and security. He noted that the appointment of Colonel Bevlulati, a former AU counter-terrorism envoy, aligns with Article 40 and 73 of the 1992 Constitution, which prioritizes Ghana's strategic national interests.
As good neighbors, President Mahama is of the view that he should not give up on dialogue. If you have your neighbors who are being totally taken over with extremism, terrorism, and indeed, all her neighbors have been attacked except Ghana. And we know that if situation gets out of hand, the economic crisis also worsen. We will be affected. We are trading partners as well, and we have historic ancestral ties. So it is very strategic for President Mahama to say that I want to help resolve this Sahelian crisis. And that is why he appointed the respected Venerable Flight Lieutenant Colonel Bevlulati.
When pressed on whether other ECOWAS members might be disappointed by Ghana's diplomatic approach, Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa reassured the committee that regional leaders have responded positively. He recalled that even before recent developments, ECOWAS had engaged in dialogue with the Sahel nations, appointing envoys to encourage their reintegration into the Union. For WADR, Nadiri Teti, Accra.
Let's take you to Togo, where the country's public debt has reached concerning levels. According to the latest estimates, the public debt of Togo has exceeded 4 billion CFA francs as of September 30, 2024. This amount now represents over 70% of the country's GDP, surpassing the critical thresholds set by the West African Economic and Monetary Union. However, Tomon Skumu, a Togolese economist, explains that the rise in debt is primarily attributed to an ever-widening budget deficit.
In the last 2 years, we have had a drastic decline in the density of our economy, in the volume of our economy, which means that there is still low production that does not allow us to raise the level of our fiscal and non-fiscal resources to the level of the country's needs. So from that moment on, it is clear that to meet the country's needs, we have no choice but to get into debt. But unfortunately, the more we have a debt service that increases from year to year, the less room for maneuver the government has to be able to create growth. And so we commit practically 60% of our resources to repay our debt, to deal with the debt service. And hence, a lack of investment, a lack of initiatives to create more wealth, to reduce our debt. There is a risk that is clear. The first risk is that we will violate the convergence criteria of the Stability Pact of the West African Economic and Monetary Union. With the level of GDP that we have today, we are beyond 70% of the level of indebtedness or the debt ratio of the convergence criterion of the UEMOA. Then we are in a situation where we are in the refinancing of the debt, where we will seek new debts to be able to meet the commitments of the old debts. And finally, if we persist in this logic, we will find ourselves in a situation of sustainability where Togo will no longer be able to meet its commitments, particularly in terms of the treatment of debt servicing.
Au niveau du traitement du service de la dette.
Tomon Skumu is a Togolese economist. You are listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Here is a reminder of our top stories. The opposition in Benin denounces the conviction of Olivier Boko and Otswa Humeke. Niger to launch national and regional airlines on an AES initiative. Reaction trails the rising public debt level of Togo. Still ahead in the news, in Senegal, police announces the arrest of nearly 366 individuals in connection to several offences. We also have a guest interview and sports news. Please stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Many thanks for staying with us. That's a reminder, we are streaming live on YouTube at WADR News and Facebook, WADR English Service. Here in Senegal, the police announced the arrest of nearly 366 individuals in connection to several offences. The arrests were made during a security operation conducted during the weekend. According to police authorities, the operation was part of the ongoing fight against crime and delinquency throughout the country. Among those arrested, several faced charges related to drug trafficking as well as possession and use of Indian hemp and cannabis. Additionally, others were apprehended for using bladed weapons, disturbing public order, endangering the lives of others, and involvement in pimping activities. Meanwhile, the Autonomous Union of Doctors, Pharmacists and Dentists has declared a general strike in Senegal set for February 18 and 19, citing the government's failure to address their demands since December 2023. This decision was made during the weekend meeting, reflecting growing frustration among healthcare professionals regarding ongoing issues in the sector. HRTC reports.
The Autonomous Union of Doctors, Pharmacists and Dentists, SAMES, intends to pressure the new authorities into addressing all its demands. The organization, which unites all the country's doctors, is calling for the recruitment of unemployed, community and contract health professionals. Additionally, SAMES demands the construction of level 2 hospitals in every department to improve access to healthcare, as well as the accelerated implementation of universal health coverage. The union is also seeking an increase in the retirement pensions for doctors, pharmacists and dentists, along with the correction of the inequalities and injustices in the current indemnity schemes. According to the National Deputy Secretary General of SAMES, Dr. Diamel Dramé, the current regime has been unresponsive to their demands, which date back to 2023.
Since the new authorities took office, there has been little to no significant progress. Our only meeting with the ministers was merely an introductory session, during which we outlined our key demands and presented a supporting document. Aside from promises of committee discussions announced by the Minister of Public Service, no concrete action has been taken.
SAMES assures that the general strike on February 18 and 19 will be observed with a minimum level of emergency services maintained.
HRTC reporting there. The Director General of the West African Monitoring Agency, Boeman Kamara, has promised a strong collaboration between the agency and all member states of ECOWAS. The West African Monetary Agency is an autonomous and specialized agency of ECOWAS established in 1996 with the objective of promoting the use of national currencies in trade and non-trade transactions within the sub-region. WADR's Monrovia correspondent Ibrahim Parker reports.
The former Minister of Finance and Development Planning, who resigned from the government of Liberian President Joseph Boakai due to health issues, is reportedly making significant progress in West Africa by coordinating meetings with financial experts. During a courtesy call organized by Liberia's Finance and Development Planning Minister Augustin Kpei Gafoin, Director Boeman Kamara expressed his commitment to establishing the Central Bank of West Africa, implementing the ECO currency and alleviating the debt burden on member states during his upcoming four-year tenure.
My appointment this year, I must say, historic one, is one that will stand a full recognition in the quest for Mama Liberia. Member states of ECOWAS, traversing central banks, ministers of finance, and that's why it would have been remiss of me not to have stopped
Meanwhile, Finance and Development Planning Minister Augustin Gafuan congratulated former Minister Kamara, viewing his appointment as a victory for Liberia. Minister Gafuan expressed confidence that Kamara's leadership will bring about positive results over the next 4 years at the regional organization.
Working with the governor of the central bank, Governor Samuel and the team, we at the Finance Ministry are going to buttress, are going to backstop to ensure that Liberia is united in supporting WAMA.
Additionally, the Finance Minister pledged Liberia's full support for Director Kamara's tenure, emphasizing the potential for current and former leaders to collaborate in advancing the nation's goals. For the West African Democracy Radio, this is Abraham Parker from Monrovia.
Let's turn our attention quickly to Chad, where the French army officially withdrew from the country last Friday. The last military base previously managed by Sergeant Aji Kosin in N'Djamena was handed over to the Chadian army on last Thursday. Dr. Everest Tolde is a Chadian political analyst, and he speaks about the situation.
Even when the French army was in the country, Chad launched Operation Scarlet. The French soldiers were left with tears in their eyes. So, Chad does not want to reorganize, perhaps because they were failures in terms of intelligence and in terms of systems, which allowed Boko Haram to strike the Israeli army base in Lake Chad. But, with or without France, Chad has already taken steps to fight Boko Haram, particularly with other member countries. I will mention Niger, Cameroon and Nigeria. You do not need the French presence, which did not even intervene when Chad launched an offensive against Boko Haram a few months ago. You know, we cannot indefinitely reject the institutions. There is a time to protest, and there is also a time to pull ourselves together. From the moment we live in a country, these are realities that are imposed on everyone. But for my heart, I believe that it's time for Chadian women to return to a better solutions to try to manage together this country, which is a common goal for all Chadian women.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Well, let's now bring you the detailed interview of Dr. Everest Tolde, a Chadian political analyst and a specialist in security issues, speaking about the situation in Chad, including the outstretched hand of the opponent Succès Masra to the president Idriss Déby Itno.
No, I do not think that there is any possible scope for cooperation on the military and security level. Chad has ended the defense agreement. So, on the military side, there is nothing left. We should no longer hope for anything. Cooperation can continue between the two countries, particularly in France. But on military cooperation or military level, everything is over. The French have taken everything away. They have burnt some vehicles, and then they've closed everything.
Now that Chad has decided to turn the military page with France, how should Chad, which has been facing recurring attacks by Boko Haram for some time, reorganize itself after the departure of the French military?
Even when the French army was in the country, Chad launched Operation Scarlet. The French soldiers were left with tears in their eyes. So, Chad does not want to reorganize, perhaps because they were failures in terms of intelligence and in terms of systems, which allowed Boko Haram to strike the Israeli army base in Lake Chad. But, with or without France, Chad has already taken steps to fight Boko Haram, particularly with other member countries. I will mention Niger, Cameroon and Nigeria. You do not need the French presence, which did not even intervene when Chad launched an offensive against Boko Haram a few months ago.
The opponent, Succès Masra, says he is ready to collaborate with President Mohamed Idriss Déby Itno. How do you understand this extent?
You know, we cannot indefinitely reject the institutions. There is a time to protest, and there is also a time to pull ourselves together. From the moment we live in a country, these are realities that are imposed on everyone. And on the other hand, many are accused rightly or wrongly. That is unfortunate. I would not say that he has been abandoned, but without the French military presence, certain leaders like Sas Masra are more or less exposed, and radicalism is useless. He understood it, and we must keep a low profile. But we see in his gestures a very strong message that he sends to everyone, that Chadians can solve their problems by themselves and agree for the good of the nation. Many appreciate it, and some also feel that it was a betrayal. But for my heart, I believe that it's time for Chadian women to return to a better solutions to try to manage together this country, which is a common goal for all Chadian women.
With this act, is Success Masra not putting a cross on his political future?
I do not think he can put a cross on his political future. Far from it. Precisely, he has backed down. He is jumping. I would say for my part that he is reorganizing himself. I do not think he can today sign the trial acts of his party or his career. I believe he sees very well. And what he does it with full knowledge of the facts. I said that he will occupy a prominent place tomorrow within the institutions of the Republic. But I do not think that he can end his political career like that.
Dr. Evarist Tode is a Chadian political analyst and specialist in security issues. Up next is Sankule Janko with sports.
Hello out there, a warm welcome and thank you for joining us. The Ghana Football Association strongly condemns the acts of violence and lawlessness that marred the Ghana Football Premier League match between Kumasi Asante Kotoko and Strawman FC on 2nd February 2025. During a football game, the tragic events resulted in the loss of life, several injuries, and the destruction of property, an unacceptable blemish on the integrity of the game, the Football Association says. The Executive Committee of the GFA has, with immediate effect, invoked Article 14.2 of the Premier League regulations by banning the use of Strawman's FC home venue until further notice. This action ensures the safety of all stakeholders while investigations proceed, GFA further stated. Furthermore, the GFA has tasked the Security Committee, led by DCOB Lydia Danko, and the FA prosecutors to immediately move to site and gather all necessary evidence, including match reports and relevant documentation, to present to the FA's disciplinary committee for adjudication of all sporting matters. Additionally, the GFA has formally engaged the Ghana Police Service to immediately conduct a full-scale investigation into the incident and bring all perpetrators to justice. The GFA reminds all clubs, players, officials and supporters that there is zero tolerance for acts of violence, intimidation and hooliganism in Ghanaian football. It says the FA will not hesitate to impose severe sanctions on any club, official or supporter found culpable of engaging in or inciting such behavior. And that's it for sports. It's back to you.
We've come to the end of this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Maudo Juf and Umun Danyogo for the technical support. Do interact with us via our social media platforms, X, formerly Twitter, Instagram at WADR News, and on Facebook, WADR English Service. I am Augustine Cully. Good evening.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3